The UK court system is a good example. The whole MOJ in the UK is running on Pexip. And all the virtual court cases that take place every day, the requirement is that those data need to be in 2 specific data centers. Those data can never leave the United Kingdom and needs to be in those 2 data centers.
Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we have Trond Johannessen, CEO of Pexip, and we get into his thoughts on the industry and, of course, Interop, what Pexip is providing to Microsoft Teams customers, and also Pexip have a secure meeting platform where you can have meetings dedicated and private on their platform as well, self-hosted. So a bit of a tour about Pexip and their capabilities and his thoughts on the industry. Thanks to Pexip, I really appreciate their support of Empowering Cloud, and many thanks to Trond for taking the time out to talk to us. Hope you enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Been excited to do this one. I've been working with Pexip for a number of years, deploying and now more recently with events. And I'm excited to have Trond on the podcast. We're going to kind of dive into a little bit about him and his background, and also kind of what thoughts on the industry, thoughts on Interop. So Trond, without further ado, could you just introduce yourself?
Of course. Great to be here, Tom. I'm Trond Johannessen, CEO of Pexip. Been that since May 2022. Before Pexip, I was working for a global international technology group out of Norway for a number of years. I've also done industrial computing for quite a while and environmental technologies. And just out of business school, I worked for a number of years as a strategy consultant with McKinsey & Company.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear your perspective on this space. Obviously, you're a couple of years into role now, but you've got that other perspective. I feel like our space is quite often quite insular in terms of people in the industry and leadership. So excited to get your perspective.
I guess every industry is like that, in its own way. But Pexip is kind of a special animal in this industry. Pexip has developed quite a bit over the years. Since Pexip was founded back in 2012, it has developed quite a lot. And where we are today, we are a pure software company. We deliver software and software as a service. We basically work as a complementary solution to the large video conferencing players like Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, and others. And we kind of do things that they don't want to do themselves. So being this extra solution that really complements working in partnerships and not competing, which has been an important part of the strategy that we have developed over the last couple of years. So I think now we're at the point where we're quite well understood what we actually do in the ecosystem, which problems we solve. And that's kind of a good starting point. So basically solving 2 very basic problems. The first is connecting meeting rooms to meeting platforms. We call it any to any. That's the whole Interop part. Any meeting room to any meeting platform. And the second is what we call secure and custom spaces, which is for those companies and organizations that cannot or will not use a public cloud platform for all their data storage or communication needs. They need something else. So we can offer a solution that will complement the public cloud platform like Azure or others that enables these organizations to run their meetings in the compliant way for them. So that's very basic and very simply what we do.
Yeah, that's great to understand. I definitely want to dive into that kind of secure private cloud meeting scenario. Let's start with the Interop. I think that's the one that this community will probably be more familiar with. It feels like that Interop requirement has become more acute in the last few years as we've gone to this more platform-based video world. So obviously there's standards-based endpoints with SIP, but there's lots of Zoom room, Teams rooms, which are by and large proprietary in terms of how they work. Is that what you've seen as well?
No, absolutely. And the way the world develops is that it looks like we will have more than one meeting platform. And it looks like organizations will be somehow having a need to connect to more than one meeting platform. Teams being the leading player out there, but having also other platforms that need to connect mainly into Teams, but also Teams users needing to connect to other platforms. And the way we see it developing now is that the requirements on this interoperability functionality actually being increasing almost monthly. You know, the functionality that you have in your native meeting setting, you expect the same, more or less, when you connect also outside of your sort of native solution. And this is something that is, of course, a bit tricky for industry to solve all by themselves. It would mean kind of sharing a lot of APIs and SDKs and details about changes constantly. It's easier when Pexip does this sort of on behalf of the industry players and ensures this interoperability solution.
And it must be a non-trivial effort to be working with all these big players and the standards-based rooms in terms of, as you say, there's API programs, there's certification programs. So you're certified with the big providers as well, certainly with Teams. Is that a significant kind of effort there? It
has developed over time, and our relationship with Microsoft goes many years back. We've also been working with Google. We've started to work with Zoom, and now also cooperate with Cisco. But the Microsoft relationship has really been where it all started, and kind of growing into it. I guess you could say Pexip has been doing over a number of years. More difficult in the beginning, but now I think it works really well, and we are, constantly in dialogue with the Microsoft on all sorts of changes and solving problems for customers or joint customers every day.
Yeah, it feels like it's accelerated certainly in the last 12 months, particularly with Microsoft, with the tighter integration to Microsoft Teams rooms and some of the stuff coming, the click to dial, the PowerPoint live stuff. Is that right? Is it kind of getting tighter, that relationship?
Absolutely. And it all started with the cloud video interop solution CVI, right? Which used to have 4 certified providers: Cisco, Pexip, BlueJeans, and Poly. And now, after Poly outsourced their solution to Pexip and BlueJeans shut down their service, it's basically only Cisco and Pexip left. And this has made the whole thing also, I think, partly easier for Microsoft and for us to sort of to have a close dialogue and make sure that we make things work for the customers. But that's kind of the original interoperability solution. What we're seeing now is the need for all those MTR users out there to be connecting into occasionally other meeting platforms. And we see the organizations with other meeting platforms like Zoom having a need to connect into Teams from their native rooms. And this is really, the new kind of generation interoperability that we are seeing, and that also requires very, very close integration between Pexip and these other solutions to make it work.
Yeah, and we won't get into the technical weeds, but kind of the innovation that's coming now is the ability to have a Teams room dial and connect to another SIP-based room or SIP-based system. So that kind of unlocks lots of interop scenarios where these other cloud platforms also support SIP as a way in. So you can kind of be the middle layer to get these different worlds to talk.
Historically, or up until now, you have had direct guest join as your way of connecting from an MTR to another meeting platform. That has had a few weaknesses to it. HDMI ingest not working, no support for dual screen, and a couple of other known weaknesses. Now with the Pexip solution we call it the Pexip or Pexip Connect for MTRs, that's being solved. And it's being launched for Windows now in late October, early November, and then for Android in 2025.
Awesome. And do you see, are there particular customer types, particular verticals that have more harder requirement for those interop scenarios, or is it across the board? What do you see?
I think what we see is many organizations are kind of in some way, some kind of transition. Many are transitioning towards, a full MTR state from, a SIP-based state that could be. And I think you had AstraZeneca as one of your guests on your podcast some months ago. And they were mentioning using Pexip as a part of their overall solution and in their migration towards MTRs. And for AstraZeneca specifically, we are basically solving the problem of connecting all the SIP endpoints that they have legacy SIP endpoints into Teams meetings, but also ensuring that when they have installed MTRs, that those MTRs can be interoperable and connect to other platforms when that is needed as well. So that's kind of a typical example of a large organization that has a complex need and a need for interoperability in their daily work.
Yeah, it was interesting, the AstraZeneca podcast, actually. I think other ones I've had since as well, where most enterprises will have a bunch of standards-based SIP rooms, and a lot of them are on a journey to Teams rooms or Zoom rooms. But actually, they found that they keep the SIP rooms running, and they end up with more rooms, and they have SIP and Teams for some length of time. And then, as you say, even if they got to that, theoretically, they went 100% Teams rooms and BYOD, then it's that interop scenario where their partners, their customers, they need to connect to other meeting systems. That's where it comes into play.
But we also work a lot with the finance sector. You know, we recently worked with a very large global bank that had a mixed estate and that needed to both, with Zoom rooms, with Teams rooms, and having this sort of, the employees did not want to have an opinion or didn't need to know what type of equipment was in the meeting room or which meeting platform they were connecting to. They just wanted this to be all seamless. So I push one button in the meeting room and I'm in the meeting. That's kind of the ideal scenario, right? You don't want to know all about what's going to happen. And for this particular customer, I think we're solving this in a kind of very smooth way by providing, our solution for Zoom rooms, our solution for Teams rooms, and our solution for SIP endpoints. So all that in combination enables them to take advantage of all the real estate, all the meeting room endpoints that they have from before, the ones they are buying, and enabling the employees to seamlessly connect to all sorts of meeting platforms.
John, in this Teams world, we'll talk about the secure meetings in a second. In the Teams world, there's two options here as well. You provide this as a true cloud service, everything's done in the cloud, and you have an option where customers can choose to deploy if they've got special requirements or they want to do additional things with the platform. I think two other deployment methods. One is beyond the sort of pure public cloud platform. The one is the kind of the gov clouds that you have all over. Oh yeah, because you've got the certifications for those scenarios as well, haven't you?
Yes, like in the federal space in the US, for example, you would want to have your CVI or Interop solution running in the government cloud, but you also can have it on-prem if that is your preference. So I know it's deployable in many different ways, depending on the security requirements and architectures that are in place in each organization.
And what mix do you see there, if you can share how many customers are going cloud and how many prefer to deploy their own instances?
It has been, interoperability has basically been a cloud play for a while. We're starting to see the gov clouds and some sovereign clouds emerging, but it's largely a cloud-based solution that we offer here.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to talk about the kind of Teams, Zoom, Interop world before we get into the secure meetings?
I think it's interesting. I mentioned this large bank, and banks also generally are very security conscious, and they are very concerned about what type of, how many apps are downloaded on the corporate laptops, and there are restrictions on what all the employees can do with laptops. So the question around is it possible to do interoperability also from, for example, a Teams client or a Zoom client has started to come up.
Oh, interesting. So they're happy with that single client. They'd rather not have people running all the meeting room clients or the web versions. They see an interesting opportunity there.
Yeah, so we're getting those questions, and I guess it's something we have to, something the industry has to discuss a little bit. If we're seeing, the opportunity to connect to a Teams meeting from a Zoom client or to a Zoom meeting from a Teams client or any other service, I think it's an interesting discussion to have, because it's clear that the preference of the IT department of the large organizations would be to have fewer apps running on each laptop. So it could be next generation Interop we're seeing in a few years.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's jump into secure meetings, because this is a whole different thing that you do for some really interesting customers. I'm not sure we can talk about all of them, because obviously, but what is this kind of secure meeting scenario?
Some organizations basically have restrictions on the use of cloud platforms. Could be pure compliance, like for the health sector in a given country. It might not be allowed to have any data about patients shared outside of the country's borders. So everything needs to be on a data center locally or in a cloud that is within the country's borders. And to be able to run a full video conferencing service in such sort of a closed environment without connecting to any kind of public cloud, you need to have a special software to do that. And Pexip has that. Not that many competing offers in the market at this point in time.
No, I mean, the whole industry has gone to cloud, right? So all the big players are aggressively pushing have MCU in the cloud, or maybe they have hybrid MCU, but the signaling and data is still interoperating with the cloud service. So
Correct.
Truly, you can do kind of, if you needed to, truly like air blocked on private network meetings, yes. And it would all still work.
So that's the extreme version. That's the defense, the armed forces of countries and the sort of top level government, and they will have generally very sort of closed systems.
Yeah.
And then you have others that are more moving towards the sovereign systems, where you have a sovereign cloud that you use for certain parts of the public sector or large organizations. And here you also have, again, this complementary solution coming from Pexip. So you can have Teams, and then you have a secure meeting platform sitting next to Teams that you use occasionally for compliance. When you have this, your main use case is Teams, and then you have something that you use on the side when that is required. And one example could be like the health sector in Norway, patient data needs to be discussed on this private platform. Or, I know the top level government in another European country, they have all discussions between sort of the ministers that's happening on the secure platform or the kind of the on-prem platform that they have on the side. So it's something that we're seeing quite a lot of growth in this area, both the sovereign clouds, the self-hosted solutions.
Yeah.
And I think AI has been a part of driving that, interestingly, has been a part of driving that development, because all the AI tools that are fantastic, the co-pilots and what have you, these are fantastic tools. But people are also sometimes a little bit scared of what all these tools can do.
How interesting. It's highlighting much more visibly the fact that pretty much everything we do can be transcribed and recorded, and often is by default in your typical scenarios now. So if they want to be 110% sure it can't happen, then knowing it's on this different platform in this different use case is interesting to them.
They will have control over it, and so that can be everything from law firms to investment banks to others that sometimes have meetings that they would say some meetings are truly private, and however they define private, it's up to them. But it's kind of enables that possibility.
And do you offer this scenario as a cloud service you run, or is this scenario always you give the code and the customer or a partner with the customer runs the infrastructure? What does that look like?
We will generally deliver this just as a software, so it's up to the customer to deploy it wherever you want. But the good thing about Pexip is it can be deployed in the cloud. It can be deployed on the server in the basement or in the sovereign cloud or wherever you want to deploy it. And you can shift it around so the users won't really notice. And that's quite interesting in today's world, where you are seeing some uncertainty in a few countries on how this is going to play out. What will the requirements be? Is cloud okay? Do I need to go sovereign? Do I need to go on-prem? And then Pexip can offer a flexible solution in this respect. So we're seeing quite some interest from the public sector, particularly in this area.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can kind of see two use cases you're talking about there. One is trust and risk with the provider, but even if you truly trust the cloud providers, there's this other scenario about we need to stay sovereign for this legal requirement, or we need to have an absolute kind of governmental defense level DR scenario where countries aren't getting on and we need to be truly private, truly air-gapped. You can go to that level as well.
Absolutely. But then you can take the UK court system is a good example. The whole MOJ in the UK is running on Pexip. And all the virtual court cases that take place every day, the requirement is that those data need to be in 2 specific data centers. Those data can never leave the
right.
United Kingdom, and needs to be in those 2 data centers. And here Pexip has a custom-made solution that enables, a workflow for these court cases, and also takes care of the compliance requirements for keeping the data in London.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kind of extensibility or customization there. I've seen that scenario, and it's really interesting. It's not your typical use case. So it's like, this party needs to be muted at this point, this party needs to do this party needs to do that. Talk us through that, because that's part of the story as well. It's not just you get what you're given. There's some kind of APIs and extensibility there, isn't there?
Yeah, on the customer side, to make this workflow really work, and of course the judge has his way of running a court case. He needs to be able to have a witness waiting. That witness cannot hear what somebody else is saying, needs to stay in the breakout room. Sometimes you need to keep someone anonymous for various safety reasons, that the person cannot be identified. And there are many, and you need interpreters coming in to the workflow to be able to interpret in an efficient way to make this whole thing work. And all the things you are used to in a physical courtroom, you would want that also to be in place in your virtual courtroom. And every country here is a bit different. So we have these solutions operating in several countries. Yeah. And it's, of course, here we don't deliver ourselves. We have integrators that do this, but it's an interesting sort of custom video challenge to make a court case work really almost like it does, in real life on video.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say there's decades, there's more than decades, there's in some cases centuries of precedents and procedure and process there, and we're looking to remap that as best we can to a digital equivalent, I guess.
But imagine the savings, you don't have to transport a witness from a prison or a prisoner from a prison into the courtroom every time. A witness can be staying somewhere else. It's extreme, the efficiency gains here are just extreme.
Yeah, and I guess the kind of the notation and what they call the stenographs and recording and all that kind of stuff as well. There's options to digitize that, which could be huge savings and completely unarguable records of what happened and when and why as well.
Yeah, no, correct. No, so it's interesting. So working in these two kind of very specific niches of the video conferencing industry is exposing us to some interesting problems on a daily basis. I think it's a fascinating space. The ecosystem is developing extremely fast. The way video is being used now, if you just go a few years back and see how it has completely changed, following the pandemic, I guess, and everything we've learned through it. So no, it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting space. It's great to hear a little bit more about the wider Pexip portfolio. I think a lot of people in this community will definitely know it from CVI and Interop, but that whole background and being able to run, like, pick Pexip up as a cloud SaaS, but also that scenario where you can run your own instance, customize it to business use case is really interesting. Yeah.
And the way the industry really has opened up, and Microsoft basically being the leading player in terms of opening up, being an open platform, allowing others to connect, and also allowing Pexip and allowing certified solutions to make custom solutions that make this experiences for the customers, joint customers, even better. I think it's an excellent example of how an industry is solving problems for end users in a way that is, I think it's a great example.
Yeah, agreed. It's definitely nice to have the options and to have a company really thinking about that problem and working between all the big players as well is so key. I definitely think there's certainly going to be an ongoing requirement for that scenario. It doesn't feel like the industry is going back to pure standards-based. It's going to be some standards-based. You said multiple platforms. It feels like there's a big 3 or 4 platforms now that are going to kind of fight out, and people are going to have scenarios where they can cross-meet on those scenarios.
Now, there was an industry expert the other day that told me that one of the biggest concerns that do come up when large organizations are looking at their sort of video conferencing platforms is the whole interoperability question. How can it be solved in the best possible way and to seamlessly connect to all these platforms? So I know it's great to be solving that problem on a daily basis.
Awesome. Well, Trond, I really appreciate you taking the time out to jump on the podcast, and I appreciate everybody at Pexip and their support of what we're doing as well. It's great to catch up, and hopefully we can see how things progress and maybe have you on again at some point when all the latest Teams Interop's been released.
It's been a pleasure, Tom. Thank you very much.